Hello, and welcome back to Pop Culture Graveyard. I am Hollis. With me, as always, is Dave. Hello, Dave.
Hello, Hollis.
This is an exciting episode. We get to return to one of my favorite actors of all time. And I don't even call him a comedian because he's such a brilliant actor that never gets enough accolades. I'm talking about the great Eddie Murphy. And today we're going to cover Life.
Yeah, want to make your movie hard to for people to reference? Call it Life.
I know.
It's a cereal. It's a magazine.
It's a dessert topping.
It's a word.
Yeah, it's true. So, Life, 1999, directed by Ted Demme, written by Robert Ramsey and Matthew Stone, and surprisingly produced by Brian Greitzer. I was surprised when I saw the Imagine come up, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot. It's a Brian Greitzer film.
I don't know who that is.
He is the partner of Ron Howard in Imagine Films.
Okay. So, Imagine, right, yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Eddie Murphy, great comedian, great actor, damn fine human being.
Are you speaking personally or things you've seen professionally?
Just when he talks to people, he seems good and kind.
Yeah.
And and his ha-has come from a good place.
I'm going to tell you something. You don't last as long in the business as Eddie Murphy and not get canceled if you're not a good person. I'm just going to take a wild guess at that.
There was a rumor mill thing for a little bit, and maybe even an actual thing. Yeah. But now you're like, oh, why would anyone even fucking care?
Yeah, isn't it funny how things have changed so much? Like way back when, you give someone a ride in your car and it makes all the papers.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And you're done. You're done.
Today, like social media, I think that would be like a 3-day news cycle.
Yeah, if that. Depends on what happened. Like if somebody gave thumbs up at Arlington Cemetery, you'd be good the next day.
Oh, God, help us all. Tell me about the fit today. Are you rocking anything specific?
Oh, I am actually. This is a Pan Am shirt from when Pan Am started going to England. It was their graphic.
That's gorgeous.
Yeah, and she's got little the pupils are
Pan Am logo?
Little Union Jacks.
Oh, little Union Jacks. Oh, that's adorable. Wow, cute.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah, it's a beaut. Oh, we got a thumbs up. I don't know why. Oh, maybe who knows why?
If anyone watching this knows why, please tell us in the comments.
Yeah,
why,
we'll turn it
why
off.
You get what turns on the thumbs up.
Yeah.
And I am rocking the Run DMC shirt. One of my Run DMC shirts because I've always loved them. They were important to me as a child. And their song, It's Not Funny, samples Eddie Murphy, his bit Singers from, I think it's Eddie Murphy Comedian. And it's like, ha ha, real funny motherfucker. So anyway, they sample it throughout the song and they kind of put a filter on it so you can barely make it out.
I feel like somebody else sampled Eddie Murphy from his stand-up. Like, do you remember?
Sure.
Anybody in the audience ever get hit by a car?
Oh,
you
yeah.
Remember that line? Yeah. What song was that line in?
Oh,
tell us in the comments.
Yeah,
because you're all so active in the comments.
Both of you, let us know.
Both of you. That's
so,
funny.
Dave, prior to watching this time around, had you ever seen or heard of this film?
No, I had never seen anything, but the thing came up again, which I've mentioned once before, I think. It turns out I had seen a scene in like a TikTok. One of the things people like to do with TikTok is just show a short scene from a movie. No explanation.
Weird.
Yeah. And I saw the stopping into a white establishment for a pie scene.
Whites only pies.
Yeah. So that scene I had seen and I was like, oh, what a weird scene that uses the N-word quite a bit. So as a standing on its own, chopped up to fit on TikTok thing, I was not drawn into it. I didn't look into it. I was like, it must just be some old Eddie Murphy, Martin Lawrence movie that I missed. Little did I know that it was from a star-studded, I mean, just an extravaganza cast-wise. Unreal.
Bernie Mac, Clarence Williams III, Oba Babatunde, Ned Beatty, Miguel A. Nunez Jr., who I first fell in love with in Tour of Duty, this show I used to love as a kid. Nick Cassavetes, the son of John Cassavetes and Gena Rowlands. Rest in peace, Gena Rowlands. I'll say Gina Rowlands, just in case. Bokeem Woodbine as Can't Get Right. Heavy D, sans the boys, as one of the Gravediggers,
yeah.
along with Bones
He's great,
Malone.
by the way.
He is great, and it features absolutely gorgeous women. Lisa Nicole Carson, who I first fell in love with in Ally McBeal. It's got Sanaa Lathan as Martin Lawrence's love interest. I believe it's like Dawn from En Vogue doing the singing when they go into a
that makes
joint.
sense.
But just beautiful. Poppy Montgomery is pretty as May Rose as an adult who Can't Get Right gets with. And the pièce de resistance, saving the best for last, as Spanky, the Harlem gangster, we have Rick James, who is awesome in this.
Yeah, he's fantastic. Apparently coming off of knee surgery, so the limp is not faked.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, he has a cane. Oh,
Yeah,
so good.
yeah.
He is so good. I've often said
so
that
good.
rappers and singers, they make great actors because essentially they're storytellers. And Rick James is a great songwriter and a great storyteller and nightlife legend as immortalized by Eddie Murphy's brother, Charlie Murphy, in his Hollywood Stories. So fun to see.
Yeah, so that cast.
Oh.
And that's not like, these people pop in for a moment. These are all pretty much leads.
Yeah,
everyone's in it, and everyone's in it full force.
Yeah.
Impressive.
Right from the start, it's kind of bookended by, speaking of storytelling, the movie is bookended by the narration of a character called Willie Long, played by Oba Babatunde, who is such a great looking character, great looking actor, and he's got a fantastic voice. It's one of those voices, Dave, that we're always singing the praises of. But if you want to make characters like Claude and Ray in this movie seem mythic and legendary, have them be narrated by such a wonderful voice and have them be spoken of before they even show up. It really helps to make them kind of folk heroes.
You know what else? You know what else helps them make them mythic folk heroes is before they even show up, they're being buried in a hole.
Yeah,
they're dead and being buried. Which at first I have to say, I was like, "Oh, we know the lead characters died. This is such a bummer." Spoiler alert, folks, because you're gonna find out why they're being buried in this.
Doesn't hurt the film at all.
But yeah, they right away they're mythic, and it's a combination of this perfect delivery. He's in a wheelchair. He has the glass flask of moonshine. Yeah. And he's just delivering it exactly how you want. He's borderline cliche,
right?
But he's great.
He's holding his cigarette like between his third and fourth finger.
Unheard of.
So many beautiful little, and that's what a great actor gives you, such little touches. And I have to tell you, Dave, we see the characters here aged like 60 years or something. The age makeup is really good in this. That could be the death knell for a movie like this. It's a comedy. You're not judging it like you would Little Big Man or The Diary of Miss Jane Pittman or some kind of critically acclaimed movie, but it really helps.
Where does it fall timeline-wise with like the clumps and all those heavy makeup movies that Eddie Murphy was involved in? Because I wonder, is that the guy? Like, obviously a genius and capable of incredible things.
Right.
And honestly, their old age makeup, it worked for the movie. I wouldn't say that it was perfectly believable. But
that's all we needed, though, is works for the movie. And these are, Martin, you and I have talked before about our love for the TV show Martin. He used makeup on there to play Jerome, to play
That's right. I forgot
the
about that.
bald
Yeah.
kung fu guy. I forget his name,
Yeah.
but he looked
He
like Carl
did a bunch
Douglas,
of
who
he
had
did a
the
bunch of good characters. I
yeah,
forgot he
yeah,
did
yeah.
that. Yeah, that was really good.
So it works in that kind of way. It works as a kind of like artifice
Mhm.
to play these characters, and they inhabit those
They
roles.
really do. They do it real nice. And I think that Martin probably said, "Give me the Grady,"
Yeah,
because he got almost a straight up Grady.
a little Whitman Mayo. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
really good. He also has a little of that kind of like Arsenio from the barbershop in Coming to
Oh, yeah,
America.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. And to answer your question, the Clumps was like 3 years before this. The
Okay.
first, not the Clumps, but I should say the Nutty Professor, where he first played with that kind of makeup,
Yeah,
which also did some CGI, if I recall, though, about his face and the changing body types.
probably. But I think
Um,
that Eddie Murphy was probably like, I got a guy who's
yeah,
gonna take care of this.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think also, as long as we're on makeup, I think the whole Clumps kind of thing, which is genius, and he gave real characters with a brain and a heart and their own kind of like point of view to them. But I think the makeup kind of diminished in a lot of people's eyes who Eddie Murphy was. Like I think they couldn't get past the makeup. And I don't know if
Yeah.
that's why this fell off audience wise after the first couple of weeks, but it does him a disservice and Martin a disservice because they're great throughout.
It's very easy for people to simply not see it because they see the ads and they go, "Oh, it's more zany makeup stuff." And there are people who are like, "I'm never gonna see a movie where a guy has literally 200 pounds of prosthetic makeup on." There are people who are like, "That's not my bag."
And those
Uh,
people are missing out because
they are.
this is not your random comedy. This is a New Jack Cool Hand Luke. This has elements of stir crazy. It has elements of so many great classic comedies and classic dramas.
I was wondering when I was gonna say this because it's something I wanted to say, and now's a good time. I have never been more moved and convinced of the tragedy of going to prison than in this movie. I've seen half a dozen prison movies. This was the one that made my heart drop and say, I think I just grasped what it is to make a mistake and go to prison for life. Never mind going to prison for life for a crime you didn't commit, but to
Wow.
go down a wrong path and have your entire life taken away from you.
That's really something. In all the films of all the dead men walkings and all the escape from Alcatraz and all the that this was the
Shawshank,
one. Shawshank.
and
Wow.
yeah, this was the one.
Well, there's the unfair thing of I mean, it doesn't get more unfair than racism, but like the uncut racism of this film and the way that they're railroaded, like so many black men were and are railroaded into prisons for crimes they did not commit or crimes that they would not have committed except for dot dot dot. Like it's amazing how well this captures that feeling you're talking about.
Yeah, it's amazing. And you think like, oh, when you make a movie about two guys in prison, you make a movie about two special cases. It's special because they weren't guilty. It's special because they escaped. It's not special that they weren't guilty. The prison they went to and the prison a lot of people go to is a labor camp, and it still is. And it needs laborers. And part of the process is to have a system that can railroad as many people into that so that they can make money off of them. Every one of
Yeah.
them is a worker going to a labor camp.
It's
Um,
legalized slavery, is what it
yeah.
is.
When these guys go to this labor camp, they're told, oh, we need you to clear this field for the highway, or I forget what it is, which
Mhm.
is kind of how, like in the early days, that's how it started was, well, you've been incarcerated, you're going to work for the state. The state needs things done, you need things to do. And it almost kind of is like, okay, that kind of makes sense. They're being punished, the state needs highways, you're going to, and then it's like, this farmer needs this land cleared for his plantation. We're going to have you do that too. He's going to pay the state. Now the state's going to make some cash. And then before you know it, you got entire prisons that are building electronics. They're like, it's just a labor force.
Yeah.
And the incentive is make sure that you always have millions of laborers locked up to do this for us.
2 episodes ago, we did High Anxiety. That is all about keeping people against their will to bilk them out of money. This is sort of like the same thing of just housing people, housing a workforce fairly or unfairly to get things done.
Yeah.
And one of the tragedies they show, I think, very deftly in an age progression montage, and there's a few of them. Some characters simply vanish. You
Mhm.
see them older and they vanish.
Because
You
you don't
know,
last long. You don't last long in a
you
prison
don't
camp.
last long, and it's Django Leg. It happens to. It happens to
Cookie.
Goldmouth, Cookie. They just kind
Mhm.
of disappear, and it's kind of like we've gotten to know these characters, even ancillary wise. It's like a family. Pressure and brutality will do that to you. It'll kind of solder you into a kind of
Yeah.
family.
I'm totally guilty of trying to compare bartending to that.
Mm.
Working at Fontana's, where our clientele was rough, and it was a brutal night every night, and at the end of the night, you'd all tell stories about how brutal it was, but how hard it was really cemented the staff together. Now, I'm obviously drawing a parallel where there practically is none, because of the difference in severity.
Mm.
But I can't imagine the bonds between people who go through something like that.
And within that bond, there are more personal bonds that develop, and not just between Ray and Claude. Like I mentioned, Cool Hand Luke, there's a big fight sequence in that between George Kennedy's character and Paul Newman's character. It is that fight that gets Paul Newman's character respect from the
Mhm.
much larger George Kennedy character, but also throughout. It's almost like that thing, like they say in the New York Dolls, like Johnny and the drummer Jerry Nolan got in a fight once, and Jerry kicked his ass. And from that point on, Johnny was like his little brother, and he would do whatever Jerry told him to do. And like Goldmouth, he had this predatory kind of vibe going on towards Claude, and then transferred to Ray, and that fight kind of neutralized all of that.
Mhm.
Likewise, Django Leg makes a pass at Claude because his hands are supple like a lady. And, you know, there's all these things within it. And Django Leg has a relationship with Biscuit.
Yep.
And some of these guys are in for harsh crimes. You
Well,
know,
there's something to think about. One, like we mentioned, many people are in there for no crime at all,
right.
or maybe much smaller crimes, but that's not what it says on the reason they're in there. Another thing to think about is what Eddie Murphy was faced with when they all said what they were in for, and they said, "What are you in for?" Eddie Murphy went with killing spree.
Oh, right.
I can just something sets me off. I'll just kill I just start killing people. I just start
Ha.
killing people. Yeah. So, and that should make you think everyone's been in Eddie Murphy's position at some point, coming in, hearing what everybody else did, and being asked, "What did you do?"
Yeah.
So everybody is in a position to lie and to lie big. Now, granted, I'm sure there's a couple of heavy duty killers in there, but there's a good chance that most of them are telling stories so they don't come off soft.
You want to protect yourself with stories
Yeah.
of what you did on the outside.
Yeah, you don't want to be in there for jaywalking.
Right. You know, I think one of the reasons that Eddie is so endearing in this is that his character of Ray Gibson is indomitable, just like his character when he played Rudy Ray Moore in Dolomite. There's nothing you can do to him that he will not see that glass as half full. His break is always right around the corner. And
Mhm.
he can see
In
it.
here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he can visualize what's going to happen, like the boom, boom room. You know, my wife and I talk about, you know, someday in the future when we're going to have what we call the boom boom room, and it's going to have all my records set up, and it's going to have
Mhm.
like really plush, like wall to wall carpet, and it'll look like the
Art
inside of
Deco
a van.
mirrors.
Yeah, like all the kind of cool kind of like I want to hang out in this room all the time. Uh, But the Boom Boom Room is this club that it exists in his mind, and his character has value in this prison as a storyteller. And there's, of course, the strong storytelling tradition in Black culture, the griot, and the kind of like these highly valued people who could just weave a tale and just entertain. And they don't have TV in there. At one point, one of the characters' radio says, "Hey, I got Chicago on the radio," but people don't even care at that point because Eddie is telling them about the Boom Boom Room. And you see, it's so perfectly done because the way that they quick cut to all of the characters envisioning their role in the Boom Boom Room and how they're all going to run it when they get out. It's so good.
Biscuit as the torch singer.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
so good.
This is after the fight with Goldmouth.
Right.
I don't know.
Does Goldmouth ask him, like, what am I doing? What
Yeah. And he's like, well, somebody's got to guard the door, Goldmouth.
He's like,
he's got
I'm a doorman in a nice suit. Yeah.
Yeah. It's great. And it takes them out of it, much like Andy Dufresne in Shawshank Redemption, where he gets beer for all of the fellow inmates, and Andy doesn't drink. And Red surmised that it was like he just wanted to feel normal for a little while. And that's what Eddie Murphy can do for these guys. He can make them feel like things are, he says at one point during when they have girls over, things are almost all right here today. Almost. And I think that's the goal, It's not outlandish. Like, yeah, escape would be nice, but if we can just make it all right for a little while, and Eddie can do that.
Yeah, I bet Eddie Murphy has a soft spot for, like, Rudy Ray Moore's and this guy. He likes an indomitable spirit.
I think so, because I think Eddie in real life has to be indomitable. How else do you stay on top? And I consider him on top. He's never been knocked off, even though he doesn't work for years at a stretch. Like, he's just living life and doing what he wants to do. But like, Eddie Murphy is still Eddie Murphy. It's not like, I'm trying to think, like Jim Carrey or somebody. Like, he didn't go away, Eddie Murphy. He can come back anytime he wants, and he's still Eddie Murphy.
Yeah, and he comes back quietly and calmly. He doesn't come back because he married an anti-vax crazy person. He doesn't come back because he's doing something crazy or saying something crazy. And it's funny, he is soft-spoken. He just comes back and says, well, I was interested in this thing. It looked interesting. I wanted to do it. And I'm going to do it. And we're really excited about it. And it's funny because he'll be this soft-spoken, not trying to be funny guy in an interview. And then someone will say something that sets him up. Someone will say, like, oh, Tracy Morgan's involved.
And he'll do an impression.
He will just do a crushing impression of the funniest thing Tracy Morgan ever said to him. Spot on in an instant, and then back to soft-spoken Eddie Murphy.
Yeah, when he's in soft-spoken actor mode, he almost comes across as Daniel Day-Lewis. He's very insightful about the process. He talks about what drew him to things, and then just sporadically, you get these explosions of charisma. And it's really, it's like watching someone do a magic trick when he tells a story, and he's someone, I saw him talking on a show about when he got famous, all of the old stars were still around, the George Burnses and the Lucille Balls and and they all kind of met him and took him under their wing and liked to have him at parties. Because
he got in super early, right? Yeah.
He got in super early. We're talking like, 81 or something. And so he can tell those stories, but he's the bridge. He's our equivalent today to the great old Hollywood stars and the connections. He's one of them.
That's an important spot. There weren't several of him. That's like, if it hadn't been for Eddie Murphy, there would have been this too big gap, this oversized gap between Richard Pryor and modern.
Yeah.
And Eddie Murphy landed right. And I'm not saying he was lucky. I'm saying the whole timeline was lucky to be handed Eddie Murphy.
Oh, yeah. It's not unlike the Beatles It's that kind of like rocket ride he was on. And we
Yeah.
were all lucky to see him because he pushed the envelope. He went somewhere no one else went, like
He's
Pryor
kill
did.
my landlord, kill my landlord.
Yeah.
I'll never, I mean, that was one of the greatest things I ever saw.
So good.
My mom was like, "This is incredible. What
And
Eddie Murphy is doing here, this is incredible."
and much like most of my favorite things that have ever been on SNL, that was a film and it was done very,
Mhm.
very brilliantly. And it had its root in reality. It was about all these writers who had gone to prison or had written in prison, and Norman Mailer shepherded one of those authors' books. And like this was right on the heels of it. So it was timely, and he just hit it out of the park with this crushing performance, but he played it straight. There was no winking.
Yeah.
CILL, my landlord. And
It
he
was
believed it.
Yeah, it was great. Oh, it has always stuck with me. It had a little, Whitey's on the Moon, uh,
Yeah, little Gil Scott
element to
Heron.
it. Yeah, a little Gil Scott-Heron to it as well.
He did another thing, along the lines of like Watermelon Man and Black Like Me, another short film, I think with Tom Schiller, who did so many of them, where he wanted to see what it would be like to be white. And so they
Oh,
made him
that's
up
right.
white, remember? And he went out in
Newspaper
society and he's
stand.
walking.
Just take it. Just take it.
Just take it. And he sees that white people get things for free, like in
Yeah,
this
they don't
world.
pay for anything if there's
And he
no
was
black people around.
before, yeah, and before he's in the makeup chair and he's watching and he's like watching a TV and he's like, they hold the ass real tight when you walk, like, oh, it's just so brilliant.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
Yeah. You
Yeah, Mr.
know,
Robinson's Neighborhood was good too.
oh,
It
forget
was
about it.
more funny skit, but it was in there.
It was the perfect platform meeting the perfect performer. It was total synergy. And that's how you propel somebody. He became too big for the show. It was almost like a John Travolta, Welcome Back Kotter deal. He
Right,
very
yeah.
quickly became too big for the show. And then he'd do, 3 or 4 appearances per season. And then he was just gone.
I think that people miss the brilliance of Eddie Murphy. I think that people think he's banana in the tailpipe guy. I think that they're missing a brilliance. He's done a lot that's driven a lot of good messages home. And when I was watching Life, I was like, this reminds me a little bit of Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. It's no fun to learn about the atrocities of prison from 1930 to present day. Not a fun topic. Eddie Murphy gave you a lot of real information in a fairly comfortable setting full of laughs. There's a lot of people who are never going to watch a documentary about prison labor camps. They could learn a lot from this movie. Obviously you have to soften it so that it can't be too depressing and things like that. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of real information in it.
Yeah. I mean, the superintendents, the guys who run the yard, and there's that kind of thing. There's this character, Hoppin' Bob, who
What do they call those guys? They're my trustee.
trustees.
Mm.
Ray says at one point, I ain't no bootlicking trustee. Those guys, I'm sure, are viewed by the prisoners as even worse than the wardens and the warders and the
Yeah, they're
sergeants.
sellouts. They're Uncle Toms. Yeah.
Yep. And they
Yeah.
just to make their life a little easier and to have a sense of power. But they're in prison
Yeah.
too. And it's like, how
Mhm.
dare you raise yourself up by pushing us down?
Yeah. Hoppin' Bob is not,
Hoppin' Bob.
doesn't sound like a name with any respect in it. It's like he hops to it, whatever the white guys tell him what to do.
Yeah. But
Hoppin' Bob.
there's a great scene, or a very poignant scene where Biscuit is running towards the gun line. And, there's the gun line which you cannot cross under penalty of death. And Hoppin' Bob has him in his sights and he cannot pull the trigger.
Yeah.
He had the
yeah.
shot before anyone and he could not do it. So
he can't pull the trigger. Sergeant Dillard has a look on his face like, oh no, Biscuit.
Don't do it.
No one wants.
That's the thing, because I thought about Sergeant Dillard, Nick Cassavetes, while I was watching that scene and other scenes. And I'm like, he's in prison too. Because I'm thinking about his life when he took a bribe to let Claude and his girlfriend go to the conjugal
visit
shack. And I'm like, this is his day off kind of. but he's in prison. They're all in prison. So they're part of the family. They may not be liked from time to time, but they're familiar, and familiarity does not breed contempt when you're all stuck in a prison.
Yeah, that scene was very necessary to show that Hop and Bob and Dillard, while they are in charge, are a part of the family.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's easy to just talk about the prison, but like the car drive down south in the beginning between Claude and Ray reminded me a lot of the car drive between Carl Showalter and Greer Grimsrud in Fargo, where you have this one gregarious character who is so affable and like, hey, it's going to be great. We're doing this, and I'm going to open up a place, and the other character just is like, no,
Won't give an inch.
won't
That was a
give
pretty
an
good
inch.
Martin impression. Do that no again.
No,
That was it. That was a Martin impression. I saw it. No.
But it's so great because they're oil and water, and they stay that way. And I love that the movie doesn't get treacly and cloying and try and tell you like, oh, you know, come 1950, they were just brothers in arms. And no, they were fighting at the very end. And it's great, but you know there's love there.
Yeah. They can't have gone through that, you know, it's a love, it's a non I don't know how to even describe it.
They're
It's a love
frenemies, kind of.
Yeah, it's a love forced upon them. You know, Spanky, played by Rick James. I was going to make a cold-blooded reference at one point. And I think that people just think cold-blooded is something that Eddie Murphy used to say because of Dave Chappelle's bit. Just so you know, people, cold-blooded is a song.
Great song.
You're quoting the song when you say cold-blooded, and it's cold-blooded.
Girl, I think you're hot.
In my dictionary. Yeah.
ODB covered it too. I love that version. Old Dirty Bastard.
So, Spanky agrees with Eddie Murphy, weasels out of what might have been him getting killed or at least getting his legs broken. He weasels out of it by offering to do this moonshine run.
Yep.
For this particular good moonshine, I think from Mississippi. He talks Spanky into it, and Spanky says, pick one of my guys. And he said, I'll bring the choir boy if it's all the same to you. And he's like, really? That guy's not going to be any help. And he says, like, I really just want a guy who's not going to shoot me in the back once the liquor's on the truck, which is an excellent point. But that's how they got together. And the drive down doesn't make them friends. And the night in the bar doesn't make them friends. But the next 50 years of their life makes them friends.
Keep in mind, Dave, they don't talk to each other for like 28 years or something in the middle.
Yeah.
There's a montage of all the changing times. And there's this great scene where Martin Lawrence, he's driving the old superintendent to pick up the new superintendent at the Greyhound station. And he kind of is experiencing culture shock. There's like, you know, these folks with big afros and crazy clothes and mini skirts and like walking with a radio.
That's when it hit me how messed up prison is. That's when I said, when I watched Martin Lawrence watch people go by in slow motion, afros, tie-dyes, radios.
And then catching his own reflection in the car and being like, oh my God, look at my face. Look at who
I missed it. I missed all of it. I missed all of it. Because also he's watching Black people walking around with white people carefree, being who they want to be, growing their hair, they want to grow it, listening to what they want to listen to.
Yeah, not ducking their heads, not shuffling along, not making a scene.
Don't need to be in a suit to have respect.
Yeah.
He's like, he doesn't say anything, but I'm just feel him going, I missed it. I missed it all. My whole life I could have been part of all this. I missed it. Yeah. It was taken away from me. That's when it hit me. That's when I was like, this is the strongest going to prison feeling I've ever had from a movie. That was it.
You know, we were talking about how people grow together in this. And of course, the ridiculous example is Nick Cassavetes' character of Sergeant Dillard there is a goodbye, he says to Claude and Ray when they're going to work at the superintendent's mansion, kind of, because they're
Yeah, they're
too old.
too old to do hard labor. So now they're going to maybe do a little hedge trimming and some
Right.
tea serving. Yeah.
And Claude works the house and Ray works the land.
That's the
And
better
that's
deal.
all I'm going to say. That has a deeper meaning in Black culture and Black history. And I'm not going to hammer that home, but it's brilliant the way that they allocate them each way. But Nick Cassavetes has a great acting moment in his goodbye. He tells them each day I wake up and I say to myself, maybe this will be the day that Claude and Ray die. And each day I'm disappointed. And they're like, oh, sorry about that, boss.
Yeah.
And then he's like, well, you're going to work in the mansion or whatever. And then he gets a little choked up and he goes, well, and he walks off.
The rest is implied.
Yeah, it's all subtext.
Yeah. It's a really good scene.
He would have cried if he didn't walk off. That's what I get from that. It's great.
It's very easy to hire an actor to play that guard and hire him all based on his brawn and his ability to sound tough and everything, and wind up not getting the guy who can deliver that great delivery.
It's a great delivery. And also, they're the two prisoners, in his mind probably, that brought out the best in him. He's like, those two, I had to come up with new ways to punish them. I had to come out. I was like, hey, bring out those bottles, those old misused bottles. I want them to stand on. Like, that was one of my great moves. Like, he probably views them that way.
I had to thwart 20 prison escapes when normally I would thwart one,
Yeah. I had to chase them clear to Greenville. Yeah, there's a respect. It's weird.
At one point, he tries to hand his rifle to Eddie Murphy.
To shoot Claude.
Yeah. It's almost like he's trying to bring him in as a trustee. This is your trustee moment. I'll hand you the rifle if Claude steps off the bottles.
Well, he says to him, I'll let you go. I will let you go.
You put one in his back and you're gone. I'll sign your papers today.
And not only won't he do it.
And he winds up on the bottles next to him. And that's when they do their catching up because they haven't spoken in 20-something years. So they do their catching up standing on those Coke bottles. And they have a laugh when Martin Lawrence is, oh, my toe went in. One of my toes went in.
Toe all in the bottle. Yeah. Oh, so good. I tell you, they're both great old. But Eddie has a few lines while he's old that just, do one more again. Do it one more again. He's got the kind of, there's some subtle turns of phrase that are just pitch perfect. I don't care what you believe. I don't care what you believe. Like, he says it so, because I know what you got up your sleeve. Like, sometimes his lines just come to me and they're so brilliant, I noticed. Like,
yeah. Who were the writers on this? Not that I'm not sure that because of the cast, I have a feeling there's a lot of sort of writing for their characters and improvisation.
Right.
One of the funniest scenes in the movie. Well, this would be written, but I am wondering who wrote it because I think it was the main writers,
Robert Ramsey and Matthew Stone,
who are white dudes.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, but they manage, probably through a lot of research and a lot of listening to their cast, they managed to have just incredible dialogue that obviously grabbed you over and over and over again.
Yeah,
and stuck in your head. One of my favorite scenes is Poker Face is one of the characters who has he has a no expression face all the time. And he's been carrying around a letter for 4 months that he got from home. He has no idea what it says because he can't read and none of his fellow inmates can read. So Eddie Murphy reads the letter. And it's almost like a classic Borscht Belt joke.
It totally is.
Your mom died, your dad died, your dog died, your cat died. What about Martha? No, Martha's fine. Oh, wait, hold on, Martha's dead. And Poker Face, you wonder how he got the name, never sheds a tear, never cracks a frown.
Great.
And when he gets to the end, Eddie Murphy says, anybody else got anything you want read? And you get a
No.
whole bunch of, oh, no, 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 no. He goes, yeah, I don't. And just as it's fading out, you can hear Eddie Murphy go, yeah, no, I don't blame you.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Hmm. Yeah, I wouldn't
Yeah,
think
it's
so.
really good.
Yeah, it's so good. So the writing team of Matthew Stone and Robert Ramsey was also known for the screenplays for Soul Men, Man of the House, Intolerable Cruelty, which is a kind of rom-com with Catherine Zeta-Jones and George Clooney, and Gringo. So there's a lot of different kind of paints in this guy's paint box.
It sounds like he's one of those guys who's just good at it.
Yeah.
You know, what do you want me to write about? I'll do my research and I'll make it sound real.
As long as I mentioned the superintendent, I wanted to say how great Ned Beatty is. A smaller role with a lot of meat on it, thanks to him. I think he
Yeah.
gets a lot more out of it than a typical actor would.
Yeah. The movie's almost over. Like at that when he shows up. And yet it's weird because you said like he's pivotal, but he's pivotal so late.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's, you know, he's almost like white guilt relief for the film. He's
Right.
he gives you a break. If you're watching this movie and you're beating yourself up, Ned
Right.
Beatty shows up and turns out to be a decent human being. And you're like, well, he's pretty cool. He's being
Yeah.
pretty decent.
But it's like look how long the black people in this have to wait to
Yeah,
find
to get
a
one
quality white
guy.
person.
I do like that you start off like, oh, he's being kind of, oh, that was considerate of him. He mentions a vacation he's going on to Martin Lawrence's character, Claude. Does this look good?
Retirement.
Yeah, his retirement community, whatever. And then he says, oh, I'm sorry. That was insensitive of me. And you're like, oh, well, that's really nice. Like, that's nice
Yeah.
to see someone who's a little self aware and has compassion. And you're like, I'm satisfied with that. And then he shoots a cop in the chest. And you're like, all right, I love this guy.
Yeah. Really love that. And what a guy to shoot. Arlie Ermy. Arlie Ermy, if you don't hate him when you first see him on screen, you'll hate him after a while. He's great at those characters. That's his thing.
His DNA's job. That's
Yeah.
the job of his DNA.
The first time I remember him is Full Metal Jacket. He played the drill instructor. I think
Oh,
he was
that's right. Get down off my obstacle pile. That's
yeah.
him.
I think he was supposed to just like train the actor who was playing the driller. And after a while, they were like, no, we got to use this guy.
Okay, that makes sense.
I'm not sure, but I think so. But anyway, I said about Ned Beatty, he does in a very short amount of time what you need him to do. He gets you there. And
yeah, that's a movie in itself.
It is.
You know, the story of that superintendent, is that what he is? I don't know what he is. The story of that superintendent, he does that arc like gymnastics.
Yeah.
Because you need to believe that he would have, by the way, I clapped my hands when I said he shot a cop in the chest. It was a guy who had it coming. He has a very short window to believe or not believe Claude and Ray that this is a cop who put them in jail unfairly for the rest of their lives.
And stole from them.
Yeah. And he makes his choice, and he makes his choice irrevocably.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know, the guy forces his hand, but still, it's really impressive.
Well, the great thing is, spoiler alert here, if you haven't seen it, go see the movie. But when older Sheriff Pike, played by Ermy, goes for his holdout piece in his ankle, he's not pointing it at Ned Beatty's character, forcing his hand. He points it at Ray and or Claude, who are struggling with the rifle.
Yeah, even better.
Even better. Because then Ned Beatty's character makes a definite choice, a moral choice, an ethical choice, a personal choice. He's like, no, this is my friend. This is Claude. Fuck you. It's great.
And then he pulls a Dick Cheney when the cops ask him what happened.
Yeah, it's a hunting accident. I swung around on my right to catch a bird, and he walked in my line of fire. Even the way he says it is like, oh, this guy, he was asking for it. And where were the convicts then? Oh, I think they were putting our game on the truck.
They were loading the truck.
Yeah, they were another town over.
Which also is more, it seems like a way to get out of the jam But also, it's point like these guys didn't kill anyone and they're in jail for life, in a prison camp for life. This guy just shot someone in the chest and explained his way out of it in 30 seconds
Yeah.
because he's white
Yeah.
and because he's in a position of power.
That's true. That's true.
Yep. So it really, it punctuates the difference.
Yeah. Eddie Murphy, I just want to say one more thing. When he's like, he's old and he's talking with Martin Lawrence, they're talking about the morgue. And he talks about the upper room when Jesus, like,
Oh yeah, the singing,
the
singing. What is it? Up to the room when you go up to
the upper
when
room.
we're going up the upper room. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh my God, he nails that so well.
He nails it.
This is a real Eddie Murphy love fest.
Yeah, it really is.
Rightfully so. So was Rudy Ray Moore.
Yeah.
So was Dolomite.
There's an actor in here who's great, who doesn't even have a line, and it's Bokeem Woodbine, who plays Can't Get Right. He plays this kind of baseball prodigy who knocks up, I don't know how he does it, he knocks up the superintendent's daughter, and that's played for laughs, and it's really good. And they all have a Spartacus moment where each
I
one
love
of them
that scene.
takes
I love when
responsibility.
Jangle Leg comes out.
Yeah, I'm the pappy.
And then they can't swallow it after that. When Jangle Leg says it, they all start laughing.
Even Sergeant Dillard laughs.
What is it? Dillard, yeah.
Cassavetes laughs.
I mean, it's like they've been setting that up.
Right.
With how gay he is. So that if he were to step up and say, yeah, I took a piece of that as well.
Yeah.
That they were like, no, you didn't. Oh, it was terrific.
Bokeem Woodbine, funny story, true story. One of my dear friends from college who I've known like 30-something years, Darren, he used to have a band when he was still in high school and just out of high school called Mazard. And Bokeem Woodbine was the lead singer.
Wow.
And these were the days where they were worshiping Guns N' Roses. They loved Guns N' Roses. I'm talking like 88, 89, 90. Right. So Bokeem practically sounded like Axl Rose. Really funny. I've seen videos. He used to even do the Axl Rose dance.
Sway.
Yeah,
Axl sway.
So it's triple threat, Bokeem Woodbine.
Yeah. On his character, Can't Get Right, I actually this is a case where I have a little sports knowledge.
Ooh.
Yeah. I have names. There are sports names that I find particularly just perfect. Dave Kingman. I don't know what it is about that name, but I'm like, that sounds like a baseball player to me.
Yeah.
Rusty Staub, obviously.
Are you going all Mets?
Oh, is that? I don't even know. See, I don't know.
Well, Staub was Expos and then Mets, but okay. Kingman was a Mets.
But a name that always stuck with me as I always thought it was like a classy baseball name. I also did not realize it was not spelled in the French, but Ron LaFleur.
Ron LaFleur, played by the great Geordie LaForge.
Oh, love Geordie.
In a TV movie when I was a kid. Ron LaFleur was played by LeVar Burton.
Fantastic.
So I'm sorry. Anyway.
No, that's okay. So I have this thing with baseball names, and there are ones that I love, and Ron LaFleur is one. And a weird thing I'll mention about it is that when there were growing up with listening to a lot of disco, a common phrase was "on the floor," get on the floor.
Yeah,
see you on the floor, move on the floor. And whenever anyone said "on the floor," in my head I always sang Ron LaFleur. Get on the floor, it's the funk. Help me find the funk. But the reason I bring up Ron LaFleur is he was plucked from prison to play baseball.
Really?
Yes.
I knew he had trials and tribulations. I didn't know that.
Not exactly like this.
Didn't he do drugs? Similar. Wasn't he on like something?
I don't know. He was playing in a prison league though. Okay. And then word got out that he was good and they sent a scout and he wound up going to Detroit and getting a contract and he got out of prison on the baseball.
Yeah, there's a scene with Noah Emmerich playing this baseball scout. It kind of speaks to the unfair quality of the whole thing that we were talking about before. He's in prison. They had to remind him he's in prison. And he says in front of Sergeant Dillard, "Oh, there are ways around that. Isn't that right, Sergeant?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah. So clearly, you're only a bribe away from getting out.
Later, he basically said, when they say, "What about us? We were going to be his handlers." He basically says, "Yeah, it was too expensive.
Yeah.
Couldn't afford it." So
Right.
it's just, I could only afford him. He was good
Um,
though, and he did that thing where he took the flask with him when he left, and Eddie Murphy's like,
yeah,
you see
really.
how I'm gonna let it go though."
He's real slick the way he walked away with my moonshine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good. So I just have to bring up because we're always when we did the Fatso episode, you brought up the Cannonball Run closing credits bloopers. These
Mhm.
end credits bloopers were really fun, much in the same
Mhm.
way they give the Cannonball Run ones a run for their money. And it's what you talked about. Eddie is so fast on his feet and
He
he's so
is, yeah.
quick. And at one point, Martin Lawrence misspeaks or something, and Eddie immediately, "What's wrong? Mustache too big?" Because they're
Yeah, I
wearing
remember.
these finely cultivated, obviously fake mustaches through the whole movie.
When they started showing outtakes, I was like, "Of course there's outtakes. With this cast, you'd have
Yes.
to have outtakes."
Yeah. I like, Eddie's riding in the car and there's some sort of technical device gives off a couple of beeps. And so he pretends it's a car phone. He's like, "Yeah, I'm the
Yeah,
first
yeah.
one back then to have this." Like, oh
That's
my
right.
God.
Yeah.
No,
I'm the
he's
first
so
one back
good.
then to have one of these.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me see about,
Taglines.
yeah.
Again, it's gonna be hard to look up because the name of the movie is Life.
Here's one that's pretty dependent upon the poster it's in. Eddie and Martin are crammed together in between Bernie Mac and Goldmouth, who are looking massive compared to them. And it says, "Share it with someone you love."
I don't like that. I'll
I
tell
don't
you
like it
why.
at all.
I don't like prison rape jokes, and that is a prison rape joke because
Yep.
they're very large men with their
Yep.
arms around them. I don't like that. I don't like that drop the soap shit. I don't like that. That's not what
Yeah.
prison is supposed to be, and I don't
Yeah.
like the idea of it being funny. So I'm out on that.
Are we bold enough to try and come up with a tagline right now on life?
We'll edit this so we look like
Oh
we're quick,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about the music in this,
Right.
perhaps because it's by R. Kelly or partly by
Yeah.
R. Kelly. I don't
R.
think we need to
Kelly
bring it
and
up.
Wyclef. Yeah, I don't need to.
Yeah. Actually, I won't also don't want to bring it up because I thought that it was one of the few things that I found lacking in the movie was
Yeah. It
some of
was
those
either
songs.
obvious or over the top.
Yeah. Yeah, there was some really obvious like lines like 14 years. And I'm like,
Yeah.
ah, yeah,
25 life.
yeah. Yeah. I'm like, you're not pulling it off. Stop. Stop. Yeah, I'm not coming up with anything. Yeah, I was going with something like
Yeah.
life sentence with no time off for great behavior. Like
I was thinking of, I almost had like some studio hack voice in my head. It was like, "With time off for belly laughs." Like just the
with time
worst.
off for a bit. This summer,
Yeah, exactly. I think
yeah,
that's why they didn't have real taglines because it was so easy to just be stupid about it.
yeah. Hold on to your pickaxe.
Oh,
See, but I feel like once again, the marketing department fucking ruins shit. None of these posters are good.
no.
They're I kind of like one that's just Eddie Murphy and Martin smiling, and it says Eddie and Martin life.
Yeah.
I like
What
that one
about
because it's feel. Go ahead.
what about this? Life. Spend it with someone you hate. It
Yeah,
speaks to
you
their
just reversed it. Yeah,
characters.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
At least that's kind of descriptive of what you're in for. They're spending life together. At least that's my poster. But that's kind of the best I can do. But again, that took me what, 5 minutes?
yeah,
I mean, that's better than prison rape.
yeah. I just don't. I hate that. It's like it's such a widely accepted thing.
Right.
People, and when I
Well,
say like when I say don't do that, I don't like that, and people go like, "What?" And then someone
yeah.
chimes in with like, "What do you want prison to be? A good time?"
I
I'm
was
like,
just
"I
go-
don't want it to be a rape trap."
Well, that's the thing is like hidden inside of all of those jokes are the kind of like, well, whatever you did to get in prison, you deserve whatever they do to you. And it's like, no,
Nope.
there are
Nope.
laws,
Yeah.
you know, life. Maybe I ought to eat your cornbread.
No,
Uh, life,
you
a
can't.
one-word sentence. It's descriptive, but it doesn't mean it's.
Come on. I kind of love that.
I
That's
don't
like
know.
the
It's
sound
something.
of one hand clapping.
Yeah, exactly. It's got that kind of.
Life, a one-word sentence. Wow, a one-word sentence.
I'm spent, Dave.
That's really good.
Ah,
You heated up your CPU
I
working
heated
on
up.
that?
Yeah, my little gray cells.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I think hopefully we've paid tribute in a way that lets you know how much I love this film. This was a good one, Dave.
Yeah, it was great.
And
Jangle-leg.
I wanted to follow up the taking of Pelham 123 with something in prison, because there was only one character left to go to prison in taking a Pelham. But I thought it would be a fitting thing. You get the crime and then you get the sentence.
You get the punishment.
Yeah.
Crime and punishment.
Crime and
We're
punishment.
going literary, folks.
That's
We're going
it.
literary.
We're literary. All right. Thanks, my man.
It's modern.
Modern.
All right.
Hollis and Dave would like to thank you for enjoying Pop Culture Graveyard.
All right.
I'm ready.
All right. Whew. Stick and move. Stick and move. Hello,